So just to be aware that that is, there we go, started. And we'll get going, I think. I think people will still continue to join for a couple of minutes, but please do just keep popping your details in the chat, and then we can capture everybody who's here. So next slide, please, Carol. Who's in the room? Thank you, everybody, for putting your details in the chat, and then we can see who's here. Lots of people who have been part of this year's awards and interested in next year's awards, which is great. So lots of interest in it from both education and cultural colleagues, which is fantastic to see the interest. So I'm just going to start off by giving an overview of the network. You can move on, Carol. Thank you. That's me. So I'm Jen. I'm one of the network delivery managers in the Child Health and Wellbeing Network. And I'm just here today to give an overview of the network. So if you're not familiar with us and our context within the system, it'll just explain a bit about that for you before we get on to the stuff that you're really interested in. But I hope this will be really helpful to you to understand as well. So we do sit within the North East and North Cumbria footprint. So we cover that whole big region there, you can see on that little map. And children are around 20% of our population, but we always say 100% of our future. So we need to get it right from the start for our children and young people. And a lot of you will probably be aware of some of the main challenges we have in this region: huge levels of child poverty, quite poor health outcomes for some of our most vulnerable children and families. So that's the sort of context that we're working in. And it is quite challenging, but that's why we're here, to try and overcome those challenges. Next slide, please, Carol. So the network has been on quite a journey to get to the point where it is today. We started off in around 2018 with no money and no staff, but lots of enthusiasm and lots of people who were really keen to make something happen for children and young people. And we take that mantra of taking a village to raise a child, and it takes a full cross-sector engagement to make a difference for our children and young people. And that's the sort of ethos that we started out with our original clinical leaders and core system leadership who helped us get started in those early days. And since then, we've been on quite the journey to get to where we are now via NHS England. We're now sitting within the Integrated Care Board for North East and North Cumbria. So we're really well embedded into that local system. Great partnership working that we now have across the system. And you can see some elements of the work that we're involved in there. So if you're interested in any of these additional pieces of work that jump out at you, do let us know. We can give you some more information. Next slide, please, Carol. So just a word on our vision and what we're here to do. So this is the foundation that we are built on, believing in all children and young people given the opportunity to flourish and reach their potential and be advantaged by organisations working together. So we're very much around collaboration, very much around narrowing that gap for our most vulnerable children and families and making sure that they all get the same opportunities. And then the ask from the system for what they wanted us to focus on there, you can see in our priorities wheel. And one of the cross-cutting themes that was originally defined was art and creativity right from the start. It really underpins a lot of the other focus that we have because it really helps that well-being issue for children. Next slide, please, Carol. This is just some of the key stats that sort of highlight the context in which we're working. And a lot of these things are quite frightening to look at, but then this is the reality for a lot of the families who live in this region. And something like arts and creativity, which can really help improve their general well-being, can make a real difference to some families that are really struggling with some really difficult circumstances. That's why it's so important. Just so you can see the map in a bit more detail here, 20% of the population approximately is 0 to 17, and we always say young people go up to age 25, and that's about 30% in total if you include that age group. So it's a huge portion of the population really that need this focus and this additional attention to improve their outcomes. Thanks, Carol. This is a useful data document, if you like, that sort of thing. It really does sort of break down some of the key issues that we do see across the region, and you can break it down by the locality that you work in, or indeed in which you live, so that you can see what some of the issues are local to you. So if you're working with local communities, this might be quite useful to you. Thanks, Carol. Just a little outline of some of the work that we're involved in. It really is really cross-system, really broad working, but with some really key targeted focused programmes of work as well, including the CYP Transformation Programme, which is an NHS England programme of work focused around long-term conditions. We have a network of advisors, clinical and not, who really do support the work that we do across the whole system. Fantastic engagement with our youth board and network of network groups to really drive up that community engagement and young people's voice. And then there's all the comms and engagement that we do, which is the other part of my job, which is around our weekly email bulletin, which if you sign up to be a member of the network, you will also receive, and then our social media as well. Thanks, Carol. Just a word on a really important piece of our work, which is our Youth Board Manifesto, which has just recently been finalised. This is my colleague Amelia working on this, liaison with our Youth Board and our young advisors, supported by Investing in Children, previously Children North East. So this is a fantastic piece of work, and I would really, really encourage you to get in touch to find out more about this. That link there takes you to a video of my own son, Joe, talking about the work that they've done in the Young Advisors group to create this manifesto, and this amazing artwork that you can see there with the river of change and their theory of change process that they used. And it's amazing, and they're so clever and really sort of see things from a different perspective. So I'd really encourage you to have a look at that. And it's a perfect example of that creativity in action for young people as well. Thanks, Carol. And then finally, we've shared this quote since the inception of the network, really, but it just highlights what we're here to do, and that's to advocate for children and young people. And it's really important, especially for those who don't often have their voices heard, that we're here to speak for them and encourage those who can make change to actually make it happen. So thanks, Saral, for your wise words. We will continue to share them, no doubt. Thank you so much. And that's all from me. So I hope that's given you a good overview of the network. Please do get in touch if you want any more information on anything that I've talked about there, because I know it's a bit of a whistle stop. And I'm just going to hand over to Heather Corlett, who's going to be your chair for today. So Heather is our programme lead in the network, but she's also the executive lead for arts and creativity on our exec board. So Heather has always encouraged this progress of this founding commitment for arts and creativity as a cross-cutting theme, and she's been responsible for establishing a lot of the partnership working that we have with Northern Ballet, for example, our network arts initiatives, and developing our arts and creativity advisor role. So thanks to Heather for all of that. And I'm going to hand over to her now to lead you through the rest of the session.
Lovely. Thank you ever so much, Jen. Kind words. Welcome to everybody. And this, of course, is a partnership between ourselves and the network, but also TWAM, the Time and Weir Archives and Museums. So we're both organisations are delighted to invite you and welcome you today. So I love being the chair because you just get to sort of hear from lots of fabulous people. So I'm really excited about my small role in today. But I just wanted to highlight arts and creativity is so important to me personally, as I'm sure a lot of you. At the weekend, I was in Dolby Forest. I was outside in the elements. I was listening to music. We were all dancing with friends at a concert. And the lift and energy that gives you to your sort of well-being, it's palpable and we all feel it. But now with creative health, that really gives us, it's almost like an authoritative platform to speak from. So I think the awards, such as the Chris Drinkwater Creative Health Awards, are so important to do that. And we want to enable our communities to gain that resilience and some of those experiences and promoting their well-being from arts and creativity. And what part of our community is more important than children and young people? And as Jen said, they are 100% of our future. And if we can equip them with some of those skills at an early age while they're still in primary schools, then they will have them for life. And if it's within the education environment, then some of those areas that Jen highlighted earlier in relation to poverty, we're still being equal and everyone can access the same ability to use creative health for their resilience and well-being in the future years. So I have a couple of reminders before you get on to hear from all these fabulous people. So the recordings, as Jen said, will be used, and we'll be sharing the winners with our executive board next month. And the recording will be available from the 5th of July, because something's happening on the 4th of July. And so we'll share all our resources, our brochure and the recording after that time. So we ask that you pause on any tweeting and we share that. If the email that will come into your inbox on the 5th of July could be the trigger for the tweeting and congratulations, that would be fabulous. And I need to ensure that today there's no policy discussions and discussions in relation specifically to policy and funding. But do use the chat, because we find that is fabulous for these huddles, because we can really share resources and make new connections. So that's my welcome done, and now I will hand over to the amazing Martin Wilson. And Martin has been associated with the network for a couple of years now, and he holds a formal role as an advisor, but he's got over 25 years as the director of Tin Arts in Durham. But I think that quote that I added to his slide actually sums it up a lot better about what he wants out of his role. So over to you, Martin, to share 2 creative roles within our region before we get on to the exciting nominations. Thank you, Martin. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Heather. Good morning to everybody. I hope you all have a cool fan blowing towards you somewhere as it gets warmer through the day. I am just going to give you a very quick brief flyover of 2 roles which I think are worth having on your radar and are people who you can connect with and contact to. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Then, so my particular role, I am, as I said, I'm director of Tin Arts at a dance and arts organisation focused around inclusion access, and we're based in Durham. And I first started working with the network in 2020, actually, which was not the greatest year to start try to do stuff in schools and education settings through the pandemic. But we were developing the STAR program, and from the STAR program, which was delivering arts in schools to look at health and equality, we started to think about how we could share the learning and how actually there was a lot of benefit to be gained by connecting the arts cultural sector with the health sector, and that kind of coming together, that Venn diagram, that middle area where the learning is rich and there's a two-way conversation, which ultimately will support all our children and people to be given those opportunities that come from when we work together and we share and we collaborate and we find ways to plan forwards. So my role is all about creating the ways we can come together and providing a platform. I lean slightly more towards the arts and cultural sector, so I make sure the arts and cultural sector have a voice in the room and find ways for other organizations and individual artists to come into those rooms as well and to share their practices and to get access to conversations they might not be able to get in other ways. If you go on to the next slide, please. So here's a quick brief overview of what I get up to. I am 1 day a week on this role, so it's not an infinite amount of time. I'm trying to look at how we can get more people connected into the network, not only to receive news, but to create the ways by which you can share what you are doing. A network is only as good as the information that gets plowed into it. So being able to share what you are doing and the way you're doing it and raising a profile on your activities is really important. We find ways to come together, whether they are in person or virtual. I am there to be contacted on the phone, on Teams, and I can come in person to come and see you and talk about what you're doing and where you're doing it, and that's across the whole of the Northeast. I'm working with a network to look at the communications we put out and how we can flag up those opportunities and possibilities within arts and culture. But the remit is flexible and it's fluid, so it responds to need. So just a very quick update at the moment. We're looking at workforce development at the moment because that's become a very pressing need. So we're looking at how we support arts practitioners and organisations to look at the skills and knowledge required to deliver creative health in settings with children and people. So that's our kind of focus area at the moment. Next slide, please. So that is myself, and then there is a colleague of mine, as some of you will know, called Alice Thwaite. So back in 2014, if you kind of step backwards a little bit, we look at the All Party Parliamentary Group had a focus work on arts, health and wellbeing. And through a series of reports and series of steps, that actually meant in 2017, the report was published called the Arts for Health and Wellbeing. And if you go to the next slide, please, one of the actions from that was to look at formally organising much better creative health work across the country, which led to the National Centre for Creative Health. If you go to their website, you will find it's rich of resources, case studies, evidence building around the benefit of arts and creative health, as well as the training courses available. But more recently, they've created associate roles across the country. And Alice has in that role for the North East and Yorkshire. I suppose the one reminder to think that is, I focus my work around children and young people. Alice focuses her work across all population. I'm slightly more sighted in the arts and culture world. Alice is actually embedded within the health world. So she is within the ICB and actually is a very good conduit to, again, to have further conversations. Because many arts and cultural organizations don't just work with children and people, we also work across population. So Alice is a great contact to know. The next slide will just show us a little bit about the areas she's working on. Very similar to myself. Bringing sectors together, advocating, looking at those inequalities and prevention. Identifying how we can work together, and myself and Alice work very closely and constantly sharing information. So by default, if you can connect with one of us, you kind of connect with both of us and get those conversations. And we try to both act as, if you like, an interpreter and translator. The arts and cultural sector might not be that familiar with the health sector and vice versa. So we try and help those conversations and kind of keep things flowing through. I think I've flown through my stuff in the appropriate time. So we're going across to Mel to talk about the second year innovations.
Thanks, Martin. Morning, everybody. I know lots of you already, but I'm Mel Burgess. I'm Programme Manager for Regional Cultural Learning at Tyne-Wear Archives and Museums. And we are really lucky to be working with the network on these awards as part of the legacy of our Culture Bridge North East Regional Programme for Children and Young People. So the process for this year's Chris Drinkwater Creative Health in Primary Schools Award began back in September when we opened for applications. And I'm delighted to have the honour this morning of introducing you to all of this year's applicants who gave the judging panel a really difficult job, to be honest, when it came to deciding who should be this year's winners. So thank you to everybody. And if we have the next slide, please, then we've got a list of everybody here, which I'll just take you through. So this year's Creative Health innovations are Queen's Hall Arts in Hexham for the Beneath Our Feet project, which engaged children from 12 schools in West Northumberland in creative activities to bring pride in local histories and connections to local communities. We've got the SVP Deaf Centre in Newcastle for their work with Our Lady and St Anne's RC Primary School, creating a collaborative collage using handmade looms. Evergreen Primary School in Bishop Auckland for their production of Matilda, which brought together pupils, staff and parents to improve mental health and wellbeing. Monkhouse Primary School in North Tyneside for their whole school approach to using journaling and doodling to help children regulate emotions and promote positive mental health. Blue Cabin for their work with Caedmon Primary, Grangetown Primary and Whale Hill Primary in Redcar and Cleveland, using creativity to help care experienced children build relationships, gain skills and confidence, and have their achievements acknowledged and accredited through Arts Award. Changing Relations CIC for their work with Copeland Road and Escombe Primary Schools on the Rabbits and Headlights project, using short stories, creative activities and digital resources to explore young people's experience of abuse. Bigfoot Arts Education for the Interwoven project, working with Battle Hill Primary to champion local identity and creative collaboration across generations. And Gateshead Arts Development Team and Gibbside School for the Riverside Roots project, using animation to enable Year 5 and 6 pupils with SEND to connect with the natural and cultural heritage of the Gateshead Riverside Sculpture Park. And now to present our winner, and I really hope he's got an envelope he can open at this point. I'd really like to hand over to Chris Drinkwater. So Professor Chris Drinkwater was an inner city GP in Newcastle for 23 years, and he's now an emeritus professor of primary care development at Northumbria University. He's also the previous arts and creativity lead for the Child Health and Wellbeing Network. And when he stood down from the role, the network established the Chris Drinkwater Awards to acknowledge his generous contributions to the network and his passion for creative health, especially with primary school-aged children. So over to Chris for the exciting winning moment.
Thanks very much, Mel. I'm delighted to be here this morning. I'm Chris Drinkwater, for those who don't know me. I was involved in the early days of setting up the Child Health and Wellbeing Network in 2018, and have always been passionate about collaboration, better collaboration between the NHS and the voluntary and community sector, and better collaboration around arts and creativity. And it's really great to see the wealth and breadth of presentations that we've had to make decisions about this year. And I think the first thing I really need to say is, in my estimation, you're all winners, because there is an enormous breadth of talent out there. There is an enormous breadth of innovation and things going on, and we need to bring it all together and to share it. And that's what the collaboration between the network and TWAM, Tyne and Wear Archives and Museums, is all about. And long may it continue. But most of you will know we're in the midst of an election, and in the elections, people need to make choices. So we've at the end of the day, we've had to make choices, and as Mel has already said, it was a very difficult decision to make. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to pause for the mandatory 10 seconds between sort of making the announcement and the role of music, but never mind. Our winner essentially is Bigfoot Arts, which for me sort of demonstrated this whole approach to collaboration and innovation. Collaboration between the local authority, between the local library, and between the local primary school, and bringing those all together. And particularly around local libraries. Local libraries have moved on from librarians going shh and be quiet to local libraries being community hubs, bringing people together. And this project really demonstrated a whole intergenerational approach around health and well-being and the local community and creativity, and particularly creative in terms of their source of funding, which was, and you may need to Google this, and I'm sure Rachel can say more in her presentation, which follows this, around Section 106 funding, which may be alien to a lot of you, but if you Google Section 106 funding, you will find out that there is funding available for voluntary and community sector organisations in partnership from the local authorities, where there are local housing developments and where developers are expected to make a contribution towards sort of the local community. So it's in all sorts of ways a wonderfully innovative approach. And congratulations to Rachel and the team and the collaboration around Bigfoot Arts. And without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Rachel, and I'll get the right. There are two Rachels here on the programme, and I'll get this right in terms of Rachel Adamson Brown, who is going to do a 10-minute presentation of the work that they have been involved in. Rachel, over to you.
Thank you, Chris, for that lovely introduction. I'm very honoured to be here this morning to tell you about our Interwoven project. Next slide, please. So yes, I'm Rachel Adamson Brown. I'm the Director of Bigfoot Arts Education North. And we deliver drama and art projects with children and young people from nursery to secondary school age, but predominantly with children aged 3 to 11 years. Next slide, please. I feel a bit Chris Whitty. So how did we fund the Interwoven project? So basically, it sort of explains how it all came about. We were approached by North Tyneside Council. They told us that they had this Section 106 funding, and that they were looking at different organisations and different companies that might want to put a proposal forward of what they could do with that funding. Next slide, please. So it was exactly right, Chris, how you explained it. Basically, Section 106 funding is when there's been some sort of housing development and the developers have to give some money to the local authority, and that needs to be used to do something positive in the community. So this was in the area of Battle Hill in North Tyneside. So I had some meetings with North Tyneside Library Service and discussed with them potentially working with Battle Hill Primary School and creating a link between that school and the library. I don't think there was already much of a relationship there. We hadn't worked with that primary school either before, and I thought it would be a really nice way to try and engage in those children. It was a very high area of deprivation, so another reason for us to try and target those children, with a lot of children eligible for free school meals and getting pupil premium funding already in that school. Next slide, please. So so basically, we wanted to conceive some sort of project that would bring the children into the library, doing something creative. And what we decided were the elements that we wanted it to contain were that it would be an art project, that we would work with different community groups, so it would span across the generations, and that it would explore the local area in some way, so that they would have an opportunity to think about their identity and what their local area means to them. But we did want it to be relevant to the young people, because I think so often when we think about identity in terms of a location, I think we can end up going down the history of an area and we start talking about coal mines and shipyards, and we wanted something that was going to be relevant to the children, that was going to hook them in and that they could really sort of grab onto and they could make it their own. Next slide, please. So what we decided was we approached Battle Hill Primary School and asked if we could work with their Key Stage 2 children, and we would work across each class, and each class would have an animal that could be found on the Rising Sun Country Park, which is fairly near to their school. And in there, it was just really short sessions. In their hour-long sessions, they would do drama activities, taking each animal that each class had and bring that character to life. So they were coming up with hobbies for that character, things that really annoyed their animal, and they came up with names, what they would look like, who their friends might be. And then throughout that hour-long session, they would do drawing activities with our artist practitioner, who was Karen. And from each of those sessions, there was one winning design picked from each class. And each winning design was then made into a knitted character by the library's Knit and Natter group. So that was just a nice link and a nice celebration of their design. And then in addition to that, during the half term, we would also do weaving sessions with any member of the community. We said that it could be anyone from the age 5 to 105, and they would do a lovely therapeutic weaving session to create a circle that would then make part of an installation that would be a permanent feature in the library. Next slide, please. So our winning designs, we had an owl in one class, and they came up with a chef owl. So each child did their own individual drawing, and they got compiled into a book, and the one winning design that went on to be made. So this was a lovely chef who was friends with another bird. Next slide, please. And the next we had a ballerina fox who was friends with a fish called Barry. Next slide, please. Next up, we had this very dapper stag that came out of another one of the classes, also friends with a bird. Next slide, please. And my personal favourite, I know you shouldn't have favourites, but we had a DJ goose. And I love the way that the lady who knitted this one actually created a DJ booth for the goose as well, which was just really fabulous. Next up, please. We also had this dragonfly looking particularly sassy in her little crop top. She was off to town to meet a friend. Next one, please. And our painter frog, who was doing some tree renovations with his mouse friend. I think we might, is there one more? And a rabbit in pajamas who went to the seaside to meet her turtle friend. So what was really lovely about those designs was that was done in an hour's workshop in the school, that those designs were created. So we only were going into the school over the course of 1.5 days. So the children did amazing to work really quickly and come up with those really lovely designs. And like I mentioned earlier, all of their illustrations were then put by our artist into a book. So it was one book per animal. And she also included, because she's an illustrator, she included some of her beautiful drawings as well in there. So that gave the children a purpose and a reason to come and visit the library. So even if they didn't engage in the half-term sessions, the weaving sessions, they could come along with their families and they could visit the work that they'd created and show them what they'd done. Next slide, please. So yes, the community art workshops, they took place in October half term last year. And we ended up engaging with about 40 people in the community, and they ended up ranging from age 4 up to people in their 80s. Next slide, please. And in those workshops, they created different sized discs that they sat and wove together. And what was really lovely about these sessions was, like I mentioned before, it was intergenerational. There was children alongside older people, crafty people alongside people just looking for something to do in that October half term when we had absolute torrential rain, which I don't think stopped until about a week ago. And it was just lovely because people got chatting and people got to know that each other's stories, they discussed the local area, and it was just a great way for the library to get some more footfall, people coming in and using that fabulous community resource and space that so often isn't utilised by our communities. Next slide, please. Another thing worth mentioning is that we try to use all sort of recycled materials. So we sort of found different places we could get unwanted materials and wools and things like that from. And it just made the project really sustainable. So we weren't buying things and wasting things. Next slide, please. And then this here is just a very small film of just what it looked like when the installation was then up. And again, that permanent feature along with the knitted animals and the illustrated books just allowed the children and the people who took part in the weaving workshops to come along and see what they'd done. And we felt that that was just a lovely representation of the community of Battle Hill and how people come together and can create something really lovely. Next slide, please. And one lovely last little thing was a lady who came along to the one of the workshops. She was a regular at the library, a woman called Joni, and she just wanted to write a little thing on a post-it note for us to talk about how she what her community meant to her. So I'm just going to finish up with her little summary because I think it just describes beautifully what we were trying to achieve with the Interwoven project. She said, "What do I love about my street, this area and its community? I'll tell you, it's quite unique. Anything goes and everyone is accepted for who and what they are. A helping hand is always near if needed. And that was just beautiful. So when we got a board made that explained the project to visitors of the library, we thought we'd pop that quote on as well, just as a little celebration of her words. So our next project, what we're hoping to do is, obviously we've got projects that run in school throughout the year that coincide with different things that are happening on the school calendar, like Anti-Bullying Week, Mental Health Awareness Day and things like that. We're also doing a Powerful Choices tour, which is all around knife crime, and working with children in upper key stage 2 and lower key stage 3 to start exploring the choices that they potentially need to make and consider around knife crime, and because it's obviously much more on school agendas and everyone's sort of radar, I guess. And secondly, we're talking again with North Tyneside Libraries and thinking about doing a project with young carers that's going to use music and spoken word as a way for them to explore aspirations. So those are two lovely little interesting things that we've got in the pipeline at the moment. Thank you for listening. I hope that all made sense. But if anyone's got any questions, do please fire away. Thank you.
Fabulous.
We are slightly ahead of time, I think, Heather.
Yeah.
I mean, if there are any instant questions, you have a sort of a 2-minute window possibly before we hand over to the next presentation. No, okay. Thank you very much, Rachel. Lots of lovely stuff there. And I'm sure people will get in touch with you outside of this particular meeting.
Please do. That'd be great.
Yeah. And lots of interesting plans for the future, and we look forward to hearing more about them.
Thank you.
I'm now going to hand over to Wendy Kelly, who's going to do the presentation of the runners-up. Wendy is lead for children and young people's emotional well-being for Public Health in South Tees, and this whole issue of emotional well-being. Little too much focus at the moment on science, technology, education, and engineering and maths. And we need to put the arts in there and replace STEM with STEAM, because social and emotional learning, the creative arts, culture is the way forward around social and emotional learning. And more schools are in the process of picking this up and realizing this if they want to address some of the behavioral problems that currently exist in our schools. So without further ado, I'd love to hand over to Wendy Kelly, who's going to talk to you about the runners-up. Wendy.
Thanks, Chris. Good morning, everybody. I'm absolutely delighted to be involved in the second year of the awards. It's just so wonderful to see all the different creative health projects that are going on in our region. So I'm going to announce the first of our 2 runners-up. I haven't got a drum roll either. And it's great because this is actually a project which is happening on my patch, which is South Tees. So I'm delighted to announce that the first of our runners-up is Blue Cabin and their Worlds of Curiosity and Play project. And this project was aimed to significantly impact on the lives of 8 care experienced children who were aged between 7 and 11, using creativity to help them build relationships and gain new skills and confidence. And also their achievements were acknowledged and accredited through Arts Award. The project was in partnership with Caedmon Primary School, Grangetown Primary School, Whale Hill Primary School. So in particular, the panel noted that this application had really strong evidence of creative involvement and partnership working. There were clear, positive social and emotional impact, which has benefited the cohort of individuals. For future iterations of this work, the panel would be interested to see how further outcomes can be developed so we can see the medium impact of this project. So I'm now going to hand over to Jane Gray from Blue Cabin, who is going to tell us all about this wonderful project. Jane.
Thank you so much, Wendy, and thank you to the panel. We were delighted to hear that we were runners-up, and congratulations to Bigfoot. It was so lovely hearing about the project and what wonderful characters and creations they did through your project. So yeah, we are Blue Cabin. We work exclusively with care experienced children and young people, mainly in the Northeast, and we always work in partnership. So our partners on this project were Redcar and Cleveland Virtual School, and I'm delighted that they are here today along with Paddy. So you'll hear from everybody today. If you could just go on to the next slide, please. So it is the worlds of curiosity and play. You will get a little sense of what that is like this morning in the short time we have together. This is the group on our celebration event day, where they shared with parents and carers what they'd been doing, and they received their Arts Awards certificates. And if you could just go on to the next slide. Thank you. I'm really sorry. I think it's one where you might have to keep tapping the button because it's all like revealing gradually. So we had 3 primary schools that we worked with that Redcar and Cleveland selected, and Caedmon hosted us, which was lovely. There were 6 delivery sessions, so it was a short afternoon over a half term, and we had 8 children. And part of what was lovely about that was those children coming together from the different schools, and by the end of it, them becoming good friends with each other, but also really trusting those other adults in the space, because they always came with a member of staff, and they all wonderfully achieved their Arts Awards. So I'm going to pass over to Rachel, who's going to tell us a bit more about it.
Hi, so I'm Rachel James. I'm one of the inclusion officers over at the virtual school at Redcar and Cleveland. We've also got our lovely head teacher here, Jo Johnson, who has been a huge part in making sure that this project went ahead. It was really, really lovely to be part of this and get that creative element involved for our care experienced children, because that's just something that we'd like to do more of, and to see them blossom over that time was absolutely excellent. It was great getting to work with Blue Cabin and with Paddy, obviously. It got the chance to kind of nurture that artistic exploration and that self-expression from the children, which you really got to see develop over those 6 weeks. And obviously it culminated in that lovely celebration event at the end, when parents and carers could come and see what had been happening for those children, see their progress. And there was lots of discussions around seeing them coming out of their shells at the end as well. So that was really, really lovely. And everyone got to celebrate their achievements and feel really, really proud of themselves. And obviously for our care experienced children, getting to feel that pride is a really lovely thing to see and to witness. We got to work with those 3 schools who really kind of got on board, and including the staff as well. They really kind of invested in that and made sure that they were that consistent adult throughout the session. So that was really lovely. And the programme kind of focused on those theatrical games and performance art, which Paddy will obviously tell everybody a little bit about shortly. But the special emphasis on masks. So I think for our care experienced children, it gave them something to kind of start exploring that kind of lovely creative expression, but behind something. So you really got to start to see that confidence creep out, which was lovely. And there was lots of engaging activities, lots of games, creative exercises, and they really stepped out of their comfort zone, and we saw that from all of them, and they really got to explore that creativity. So it was lovely to watch them improve their confidence over that time. And hand back to Jane or to Paddy, whichever way you want to go, Jane.
I think we're going to go to Paddy.
So, morning everybody, I hope you're well. I'm Paddy O'Connor, I'm Artistic Director of a company called Mimi Theatre, and we're based in Durham. So I'm going to just take a couple of minutes with you now to just describe and tell you about Worlds of Curiosity Play, Mimi Theatre's Worlds of Curiosity and Play. And this was a wonderful collaboration with Blue Cabin. Blue Cabin created the foundation for these young people to come together, and Mimi Theatre was brought in to deliver World's Curiosity and Play. This is an experience that we have delivered as a workshop, a residency, and also an installation over some time. So we've been refining and developing it over many years. and collaborated with many different companies. It's an experience for children, adults, young adults, and also adults and young people with learning disabilities and additional needs. So this was a really exciting opportunity to work with these young people. I'd like to first of all show you a film in a moment, because that will show you the kind of visual nature of World Curiosity and Play, and then I can tell you the kind of little journey that we led the young people on. And I think that's quite important for you to kind of visually see the world that Mimi Theatre lives within. So if we could play the film, that would be fantastic if we can. Da-dum, da-dum. Little drone run if it can play here now. All we need is a slight windy sound now coming across.
Just checking, colleague. I don't think we're aware of the film. Apologies.
This is the
Paddy.
one that I've got. I haven't got this one.
It's embedded.
Oh,
if you click on the picture, does it come up with a?
We might have to come out of presentation mode. It's doing something
now.
Okay.
Carol might have to come off and come back on again to get the sound, if there's sound. I'm not sure.
There is sound with it.
And well done, Carol, because her heart's probably racing at the moment.
Yeah, you might have to.
A film.
You might have to stop sharing, Carol, and reshare with the sound.
Remember the button when you go into share.
Now, really don't panic, Carol, at all. If you show the film and it doesn't have the sound, it's absolutely fine. Please, I don't want anyone sweating this morning while you're on here.
Thank you, Paddy.
It still gives the lovely visual nature of the project. So don't worry, the sound is not overly important. So you can have a little watch here of the kind of different visual aspects of World Curiosity and Play, and some of the young people and adults that we've worked with over time. And as it was mentioned before, it really is a kind of world of curiosity and a transformation of spaces that people are brought into and young people are brought into, and instantly we're always trying to conjure that beautiful curiosity in groups with young people and adults as well, to start a sense of discovery and searching and kind of finding as well. So you can see some of the visual nature, some of the masks. So we use mask, clown, we use Italian style of theatre called commedia dell'arte, but also a whole kind of range of theatrical things. So the young people instantly, when they were brought into the room, it brought up that beautiful kind of curiosity in themselves. It was a space and a safe space of play and discovery. And from that discovery of all the theatrical objects, stories started to emerge. But what was really important was the young people were there to make friendships. Also, a lot of the elements of the theatre use has philosophies like was mentioned. The mask is about transformation of the space and transformation of the young people. But what was really important as well is that they shared an experience together that then the young people could take forward into their own lives, and that positive shared experience that they had together, and the freedom to kind of explore. It's very visual, very fun, very playful, but incredibly creative, and also very challenging. And it was a really beautiful journey. So Mimi Theatre's Curiosity and Play will continue on with lots of different groups. But it was amazing to see the young people really rise to those challenges, gaining confidence, build those friendships, but also inevitably take that lovely journey into their own lives as well. So now I will pass back to Jane. So that was just a little taster of World's Curiosity in Play. And thank you, Carol. Thank you for playing it and pursuing it. It was wonderful. Bless you.
Thanks, Paddy. And we're going to Rachel, I think, who's going to cover the next bit.
Were you going to do the little audio clip, Jane, beforehand?
We couldn't.
Oh, no worries.
Do it. So sorry.
No,
Yeah.
that's no problem. So we just had some absolutely lovely feedback from the children that had taken part, saying how much of an impact it had on them and how much they'd enjoyed spending that time with Paddy and coming out of their shells. And one of the really kind of key elements that we got from this project was for those children to sort of have a really safe and supportive environment to start to take some risks and make mistakes and grow as artists and individuals. Paddy was really good at really encouraging that making mistakes through the games, through the activities, but in a way that kind of didn't introduce that shame element. So that it was really lovely to see them having fun making mistakes and seeing that that's okay and that they can continue to grow, and that's actually part of that process for them. The teaching staff afterwards spoke really highly of the project, and they actually talked about the kind of transformative impact that it had on the young people afterwards. They'd seen firsthand how much it had given them some of that kind of spark of enthusiasm and motivation for those children. So it was great for their artistic skills, but it was also the teamwork, the communication, the problem solving, that it also brought that element for them as well. And yeah, again, that celebration event, it was just lovely to share that with the families and the carers of those children, and to see the real pride that it brought them. And getting their arts award at the end was fantastic. They got to have an afternoon tea and they all got presented with their awards. They got to demonstrate what they'd done, and it was just a really lovely project that really kind of, you just saw the pride and the progress that they made along that time. The collaboration with Blue Cabin, with Mimi, with the schools, it was excellent, and it really was something that we'd love to sort of continue doing, because it was great to see the impact that had. And obviously, we just want to thank everybody for their role in that and the impact that it had on those children as we move forward. Thanks, Jane.
Thanks, Rachel. Could you go to the next slide, Carol? And this is our last. I know I think we've slightly gone over. It might need to be the next to click again. Oh yeah, there's that image, and so to the next one. Sorry, it's another one to click a number of times. So yeah, we really just wanted to say thank you to all the brilliant children, young people. I was lucky enough to be part of it, so me and Rachel also supported Paddy as well as the school staff, and it was such a joy. I really miss my days working on that. And there's a final thank you as well, Carol. So I know there is somebody from the Art Society here today, so we want to thank them for their support alongside the virtual school to make that happen. So thank you, and thank you for coming along today. Yeah, we will hand back.
Well, that's fabulous. We've got a couple of minutes before we break, and we're showing another video clip, but this is a planned one, so it's okay, over the break. But that was amazing, and a bit like last time, there's fabulous comments in the chat. But has anyone got any specific questions to Jane, Rachel, Jo and Paddy?
Can I ask? I'm really intrigued what Redcar in Cleveland Virtual School is.
Should I
Of
answer
course.
that, guys?
Hi. So a virtual school, it's a bit of a strange name, but way back in 2014, the DFE kind of had this inception of an idea that looked after children, so children in our care needed some extra support to close that gap between where those children that lived with family members and those children who were in care. And so virtual schools were kind of born, and then from 2018 onwards we're kind of as we are today, in that it's a statutory post. Every local authority has to have a virtual school, and on their register of pupils are all of the children that go into care in that local authority, and they'll stay with them till they're 18 no matter where they live. So yeah, does that help?
How do you then engage with those children? Is the virtual school just the children that are just sort of on that register then,
Yes, so they're all
basically?
over. So we have, I mean, 90% of our children are within Redcar and Cleveland. Well, probably 80% in Redcar and Cleveland, 90% within the Tees Valley, and then the other 10% maybe in London, Nottingham, Blackpool, everywhere. So what we do is we have a team of officers. Rachel, who's just delivered, is one of those officers, and she will work with the designated teachers in the schools. There must be a designated teacher in each school, and they work with social workers to ensure that there's planning around those personal objectives, academic, holistic impact for that child each term. Yeah, and that's how we do, how we work.
Fabulous. Well, that's bringing us right up to time. If there's not any other messages that have come through, Amelia, do correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't noted any come through there. But lots of lovely comments about a fabulous project. And I think the cohort of young people that it's focused on, it's so important because they're so vulnerable. And I love the use of the mask to give an element of security to those vulnerable young people in a creative way. So now we're going to get to see another one of our fabulous entries, and you can see there it's the Kangaroo Sculpture Hop Riverside Roots, and it's from Gibbside School and Gateshead Arts Team. And we're going to play that during our 5-minute comfort break. So do, if you need to, make a comfort break over the next 5 minutes whilst the video is playing, and we look forward to joining you just before, well, it'll be just after 11 o'clock, and Wendy will introduce our lovely Kate Swaddle, our final panel member that you'll all meet. Thank you ever so much, and over to Jen. Thank you for the film. I'll give you the thumbs up when I can hear it, Jen.
Ready, steady, go. Kangaroo show. Go. Go back. Hop. Rise and fall. Rise and fall.
Hello.
Ah, Graffiti. Graffiti. Hang on.
We're just letting the others catch up.
Graffiti!
Yeah. What?
This could be around here somewhere. Riverside rivets. I don't see them.
Where are they? Not there. What's that? There's thousands and thousands of rivets over there.
Ruby. Oh, there's a train.
There is a train, yeah.
It's coming to Newcastle. Once upon a time. Oh, that's that statue.
You remembered? Does it look like water or leaves?
Flower.
Beautiful.
Cup and king. Cup and ring bowl. Fab. Riverside Park and Gates.
Wendy, if you just let me know when you're back.
Didn't go anywhere. It's okay. I'm just sat here.
Okay, fabulous.
I've just been searching for Kate's bio because it wasn't on the notes. I've got it.
I know. I emailed it as well. Sorry.
Sorry, yeah, I got it. I noticed.
Fabulous. So I'll just hand back to Wendy for our second half, so to speak. Thanks, Wendy.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. I'm now going to hand over to my fellow panel member, Kate Swaddle. And Kate has had a varied career, starting out as a NHS professional before moving into education, and has been involved in all sorts of regional and national initiatives and projects, as well as acting as an advisor to the network. Kate's currently the executive head teacher of 2 schools in Gateshead. So Kate, can I hand over to you, please?
Thank you so much. It's lovely to be here today, and it's nice to be considered a friend of the network. And I thank you all for all the efforts you put into the fantastic applications. And it was really hard as a panel to decide and mark all the different applications. But I think you made it so tough. There obviously had to be a winner, but I'm delighted to announce the runner-up. So, without further ado, Queen Hall Arts have been working with 12 primary schools in Northumberland. And Queen Hall Arts are a fantastic charity working predominantly in Hexham and the surrounding rural areas. And they try their hardest to make arts and culture accessible to everybody in that rural area. So they've been working with 12 primary schools in Northumberland, including Kielder, Otterburn, Bellingham, Walk, the list goes on. Greenhoff, Greenhead, Henshaw, Whitfield, Allendale, Newbrough Primary Schools, Bellingham Middle and Shafto Trust Primary Academy. And I think it just goes to show you how their fantastic spread is really touching the lives of all the children within those primary schools, because we really do understand and appreciate that it's often difficult for those children who are in those rural areas, particularly with regards to rural poverty, to access arts and culture. So, working on a project called Beneath Our Feet, they've tried to engage children in creative activities so they could take pride in their local history and feel connected to their communities. So, they worked really effectively with other organisations to try and access grant funding. As a result, the panel wanted to commend them and the number of schools that they've worked with because of the fantastic way in which they have brought creative health to life to those primary schools. And, we really appreciate that the co-production, working with the pupils to elicit outcomes, both physical, metaphorical, as well as culturally, have been fantastic accolades to this project. So we just said that, moving forward, we'd be absolutely delighted to see further health outcomes in the planning stages, so that we can really try and evidence all those fantastic benefits even further if we move on to future iterations of this fantastic work. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Amanda Gould from Queen Hall Arts to tell us about their work. And I know they've got a fantastic video that they want to show us, and I've seen it a couple of times now, and I pick up something different every time. So thank you, Amanda, for everything that you've done, and I'll let you lead.
Thank you very much. That was a fantastic introduction, and we're delighted to be runners-up. We're so proud of this project. We did get funding for it through Historic England and one of our local wind farms, which is the first time we've ever accessed that kind of funding before. And this project was quite big for us. As I said, it's 12 schools in very rural locations, and it was a new way of working for us. So we've worked with schools loads over the years, but generally we would write a brief, commission artists, work with the schools. We'd do it in discussion with the teachers, but generally we would be taking that role. And this is the first time that we put the children and the young people in charge of that. So we worked with a project coordinator who was fantastic, Debbie Beeks. She ran a session here at Queen's Hall where she talked to the children. It was a very interactive, drama-based session where they got to explore what an artist is. What could it be? Not just somebody who might draw, it's all the different aspects of the art. And then they came up with some ideas of what they would like an artist to be who came into their schools. So there were a group of teachers, a group of students, and the teachers were obviously thinking practically. The children thought about what they wanted the people to be like. So could they be kind and encouraging and get them to try something new that they'd never done? The teachers were thinking, how can we do something we don't normally do in school? So it was an amazing day. And as a result of that, we had some big sheets that we used, and we used the children's words in our brief for artists. So we've never done that before. We had lots of applications. We asked the applications to be written in a way that children could read. And so the children and the teachers shortlisted and interviewed the artists. It was just we're going to use that way of working in the future. Basically, it's a complete change for us. The decisions that they made were amazing. The 4 artists who worked on the project were absolutely brilliant. So putting children at the centre of the decision-making process was definitely a win for us and for everybody involved. So we've got a film. It's about 8 minutes long. It gives you a much better idea of the project. Hopefully it'll work.
You're in trouble with the sound again, Carol. I can share it.
Thanks, Jem.
Beneath Our Feet is a co-creation arts project exploring the industrial heritage of Northumberland. The project celebrates working class histories and the historic places that make up everyday life. Teachers and children work together with Queen's Hall to recruit artists. Across the Hayden Bridge Partnership, classes have been working with drama, visual art, music and animation.
My name's Becky. I'm a local artist, so I work predominantly in ceramics. I've been working with 3 schools, with Greenheads and Henshaw and Allendale School. And what has been so interesting is how each of those schools has responded so differently to the initial brief. We came up with an initial project brief that was going to span 3 workshops in each school. The children had very strong ideas about the sorts of experiences that they wanted to try, which has been really interesting. Once the children learnt that I worked predominantly in clay, they were keen to have a go at making work in clay. The initial starting point for each of the projects was thinking about place and our sense of where we live and linking that to our industrial heritage. Every student sort of perceived where they live differently. The children are very aware of how the past has formed their present community and contributed to where they live now, and that was very evident in the work that they were doing.
We're researching about the mines and all the mining people and the mine shop. We made clay tiles to make a big display about the history around here that we don't often learn about. It's important because the history is very interesting and art is also a really fun way to put our ideas down.
Once they were given the materials and free rein to create a drawing of that or a visual representation of that, there was no stopping them, and that opportunity to tell me a story visually unleashed so much information and so much storytelling. It was a really, really good experience.
In the Beneath Our Feet project, we learned about history. People used to work on the mines 300 years ago. Like young kids, 9 to 11, used to go to the mines to work.
It's been great having an artist in the classroom. I think that the children really respond to visitors. They've just really enjoyed getting immersed in a big project that takes a little bit longer than something that we maybe would do at school usually.
I'm confident that we're going to have something that is really exciting, really innovative, and tells a really vibrant story of our past.
My name is Zoe Connell and I'm a theatre maker. I write and direct and I work with young people and communities to do that. On the Beneath Our Feet project, I'm making audio stories with the children, taking the research that they have done and creating characters and stories that are fictional but based on that kind of history. Here in Otterburn, the kids have been researching mining and farming and the mill and how those 3 things all feed into each other. So we're starting with the research that they've done and using that to inform some character ideas. So thinking about real people that might have existed at the time, kind of gather all of those ideas, gather all their imagination. I'll take that away and write the audio story that kind of encompasses some of these ideas. and then bring it back to them, and together we'll record our audio story. So we'll do that by using Foley sound effects to make the kind of soundscape for our story, and then getting a few of the kids to voice characters that exist within the story. And then I'll edit all together and make it into something for everyone to enjoy.
My name's Callum Howard. I'm a music facilitator, composer, producer, and I've been working with Friedenhof Primary School, Whitfield Primary School, and Wark Primary School as well. All the songs have been co-created with the children. In this project we've made 3 songs, one from each school. It's putting all the research that they've been doing into the centre of the song. So the kids have been writing every part of the music, so every component parts of the song. So they've written the beat, they've written the tune, the melody, the words, and they've written some chords as well. You know, and we do that through games and different sort of systems that put their involvement really central into the songwriting itself.
I'm Robin Webb. I'm an animation artist and specialising in stop motion. We're making something called the Animated Encyclopedia Northumbria. Nuggets of information like you would get in an encyclopedia. So it'll be interesting to see how they look within the worlds that they've actually invented. We look at all the research that the schools have done, and we take out little snippets from those stories. It's a great opportunity for you to learn the craft of animating, but to also learn about the subject matter that you're making the animation on. And having the opportunity to use animation to tell that story, it makes it just a little bit more vibrant, a bit more exciting. And hopefully that experience will sort of stick with you, and you've learned something not only about animation but about the subject matter as well.
So children and staff came together to design the artist brief, shortlist and interview for the artists, and to choose these 4 artists. It means that they're thinking about what they want to make and how they want to make it right from the very beginning. They have agency, choice, and excitement about the work that they're going to do.
So we feel like we're a part of the whole project and not just receiving an artist and doing something with an artist. It's been something that we've been involved with right from the beginning.
Children in schools aren't usually involved with the recruitment process, so to be able to give them that experience of their own pupil voice within this project was amazing. We had quite a lot of families who had grandparents or great-grandparents who were minors. We had some of the children who were really enthused by this and actually brought in artefacts from their own families, which was great. We felt that was a really good starting point to talk about how our local area used to be used and how it's used now.
Local heritage is the most fascinating thing, and going beyond just writing about it enables us to go to a place where we can locate ourselves, our feelings. They're talking about and have so much more ownership over the knowledge and what it truly means to them personally. And all this is captured and shared within the beautiful artworks that are going to be on display.
I think putting an art perspective onto it makes us consider our local area from a different angle.
I'm learning and noticing the power of collaboration and co-creation and how that spurs on a project like this. And to be able to get a sense of this shared history in our beautiful landscape, collected together through imagination and art and story, it feels very exciting.
We're looking forward to the next stage, which will be seeing other children's art perhaps, and sharing what we've been doing. So it has been a really great journey, and because the children have been involved right from the beginning, that has made it more real for them as well.
Well, a huge thank you. Amanda, is there anything else you'd like to add to the project brief?
Just to say, as you could see, it was about children having a sense of pride in where they come from. The project came out of a head teacher talking to us about the pit wheel that was in their village, and the children called it the bicycle wheel and had really no understanding of what it was, where it had come from, why it was there. And so we tried to explore local heritage, and they chose the subject matter they wanted to look at. But we also decided to look into how that had affected the wider world, because a lot of the children come from very small villages and might feel like they're not important places. But we looked at how some of the minerals had been used around the world, how some of the sandstone had built Princes Street in Edinburgh, and just to show them that, you know, a small place can have a big impact on the world as well. And we did have a big exhibition at Queen's Hall, and where we brought all the children's work together, and we invited some of the schools to come. But they had sharings in schools as well, and one of the school entered their film into the local fair, and they won a prize, so they were really pleased with that.
Excellent. And I think with my head teacher hat on, you can really see that a short-term project will really have long-term gains. And I think with this type of project, you can see that the reach hasn't just been in their local communities, it's been much wider than that. And I think in one of the application summaries that we read, it said, they thought that the video had reached probably about 5,000 people so far. And I think you can see the impact that's going to have on, children's social and cultural capital. So, on behalf of the network, thank you for all the work that you're doing. We're absolutely appreciative of everything that you put into this project. And we can see that hasn't been an easy undertaking. It's been very challenging, but you must have overcome some fantastic hurdles really brilliantly to get to where you are. So thank you. So without further ado, I'll hand back to Heather, who I think is going to take us into the next section.
Lovely. Thanks, Kate. Yes, and we're slightly ahead of time. So we do have some time to sort of explore if there was any questions, either direct to those amazing presentations that we've had. So if anyone has got any, haven't spotted any specific ones in the chat, but Amelia will keep me right. If not, put your hand up, and Chris has already done that. So I'll go straight over to you, Chris. Thank you.
Quick one from me, coming from the health side of things rather than the creative arts side of things. The pictures, the stories, the videos are wonderful and great, but the NHS is obsessed with hard evidence of outcomes. Does this sort of work improve educational outcomes? Does it improve health outcomes? And at the end of the day, showing improvement in those areas is the best way we have of getting the NHS to divert some resources into creative health rather than into tackling waiting lists and demand for hospital services. Any thoughts from anybody?
They're really important points you raise there, Chris, and we have shared in the chat some of the resources that are available that might be able to support organisations that are not quite sure how they might go about that. There's a toolkit further up the chat, and we'll be sharing that after the event. But any direct responses, especially from those that have undertaken some of these projects, how are you demonstrating that impact? As Chris says, and I know in our STAR project, there was some unintended consequences around the development of, I think it was the reading and language that was an offshoot of the dance project. So has anybody included some of that explicit outcomes work that they'd like to share with us? I know it's an area that people struggle with, so we might not get any specific examples, but
the only thing I would like to add there, Heather, is just the fact that I think Chris is absolutely right in what he's saying. It's hard to get those the qualitative and quantitative outcomes at once, and I think sometimes the MS form capture, the survey responses, those snippets and sound bites from parents and carers and staff, both in a quantitative and qualitative measure, can really make an impact. And I think it can often be the simple things. For instance, how often do you frequent with, say, the arts culture and surveying families pre and post events? And I think it's only when you get to the conclusion of your project and you see the concluding results and you can see the impact on families that can we then kind of start to really appreciate the impact that some of our projects have had. But I think unless we ask the right questions at the start of the project, it's often hard to get that evidence by the end.
That really valuable points. And also sometimes because it becomes the new norm, you've forgotten how it was at the start. So really valuable guidance there, Kate. Martin, fabulous. I was going to say, Martin, do you want to share your experiences? Over to you. I can't hear or see you, Martin, just if you are speaking already. Okay. If we've got, shall we go to Wendy, Martin, if you're having problems coming off mute? Wendy, do you want to come in first and then I'll try Martin again?
Yeah, I mean, thinking about how we do evaluate interventions, especially creative ones or those early interventions, is quite difficult. I know that because I manage a service that does that very thing. And it's, you know, when we're working with a group of children with an intervention, that's not going to be the only intervention that they've got. You know, schools have got all sorts of other initiatives and other approaches in schools. So it's sometimes difficult to know which intervention or which combinations of intervention particularly works on that child. It's really difficult. We'll never crack it. It's impossible to crack in a way. But I think what is really useful is doing anonymised individual case studies of those participants, so that you can look at the overall support that child receives in relation to another who hasn't got some of those interventions in place, and actually track progress, you know, attainment, attendance, behaviour, the engagement with the families. And I think they're really useful tools for funding opportunities and just to make sure that you're on the right track really with the interventions in school.
Thank you, Wendy. And Elizabeth is just pointing out the time element that's needed and how time consuming it is. And especially for freelance partners, that's a big consideration, but perhaps a necessary evil. And also it's something that's really useful to celebrate. And perhaps as part of your suite of onward engagement and marketing tools, that impact, as Chris said, it is required within health environments, and so it might be a really useful additional role. So fabulous. Martin's back, so he'll try again now. Can see you, I can't hear you yet.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Fabulous, you're back. Thank you.
Sorry about that. I have no idea what happened, and also I obviously don't know what you just spoke about the last 3 minutes, so forgive me if I repeat something that's just been said. But referencing back to the South Tees Arts project, which is something Teen Arts did with the network, it was a really interesting journey around gathering that evidence and the outcomes that come. And actually, what ended up was a combination of stuff. So we did some very, I guess, conventional, traditional ways. So we did some baselining before we started the project, and then we tracked young people throughout the whole year of a project. We had the fortune to have them for a year, and then we did some number crunching at the end of it. But actually what was interesting, and I was listening to Paddy with his conversation about playing things, a lot of the rich stuff came through the observation of learning and observation of engagement and participation. And it's the soft stuff that isn't explicitly there. And some people look at a creative workshop and go, it just looks like chaos. But actually play is a bit chaotic, and play is a bit creative, and play is a bit fun. But as artists and practitioners work alongside and closely with young people, you get to sense things change. A young person might come closer to the front of the engagement. A young person might to express ideas differently, kinesthetically, vocally. So it's actually having a much mixed, more approach to evaluation and research, but being flexible and kind of eyes open to constantly looking at what might be changing, and can you find a way of capturing that. I think one of the interesting frustrations that we had in that project was once the researchers set away with a kind of parameters, they were keen to stay in those parameters, because there's kind of ethical and moral questions about but you notice things that are outside those parameters, that was difficult to kind of gather that stuff back and to make sense of it. So that was one thing. The second thing, which was the richest, was when we placed young people at the center. I think placing young people at the center of creation, production, selection, researching, evaluation, that's the important bit, because it gets really, and actually the language they use to describe the outcome was really interesting. So they don't necessarily, they wouldn't use the language that we had set out in the kind of original research paper, but a whole new vocabulary and language. And there's a wonderful little star video that we can share onwards afterwards about how the young people talk about the impact and effect on what happened with them in words that are truly of their own. I then wanted to kind of lead on to a slight question, actually, which, and then we can go to Amanda, actually, but if I can just bench one question. If capturing impact and learning and outcomes is one thing that everybody feels they could understand better and do more development work on, are there other areas of partnership working that myself and the likes of Alice Thwaite can look at to provide and to respond to the needs of the community, rather than us just kind of making assumptions around things? So if there is something else around partnership working or collaboration or project management that we can help in those areas, that'd be something to kind of be great to hear back about as well.
Fabulous ask. And if people in the interim can be thinking over Martin's question and perhaps putting suggestions in the chat for, as he said, himself and Alice in those key roles in our region. He's got an upcoming huddle in September on workforce as well, so some of it might feed into that. So really useful points, and absolutely, Martin, that star video, the young people describe the emotional well-being and impact that their dance sessions give them, probably better than 20 spreadsheets, but one illustrates the other. So fabulous, thank you. Amanda, I don't know if you want to build on that point or if you've got a new question.
No, it's just talking about evidencing impact, which is something we are always trying to do. There's so many different ways to do it, and sometimes we have guidance from funders or Arts Council or somewhere, but we're just about to start some training on an evaluation methodology called Most Significant Change, and this is being run through Future Arts Centres. So there's lots of arts centres around the country who are meeting to learn about how to do this within their settings, and it's a story-based way of gathering evidence. So we talk to people about what they feel has been the most significant change for them during the project, and then that's written up into a story. And I haven't done the training yet and we haven't started it, but I'm happy to share with people once I'm a bit further down the line and let you know how it's going.
That would be fabulous, and in particular to share with Martin and Alice so they can do that onward cascade of knowing, well, you know, this was really valuable. So thank you for that offer and that suggestion. Lovely. Well, we've done a lot around the outcomes. I think some of the other things, we've got the fabulous point highlighted about section 106. Thank you, from one of our earlier presentations. So there's some people that might want to follow that up as well. And thank you, Amelia, fabulous Amelia, putting the star work in the chat there. In particular, I thought, if there are no further questions, and I've got no hands up, I think it'd be really valuable for us as a partnership to understand how we might make year 3 of these fabulous awards even bigger and even better. And that's the next item that we are going to go on to. But just before we did that, I thought it'd be really valuable to gather perspectives from people that are dialed in at the moment to say, oh, I think this would be really useful, or oh, I only heard about it last minute, or I wasn't sure about the process. So is there any learning for us to make sure that, you know, this fabulous platform that we're building and we're growing each year, how can you help us to co-produce it and make it even better? We have the suggestion of the Creative Health Champions that Martin and Mel are going to share with you, but is there anything that you can highlight now, if you perhaps start to pop that in the chat? And I'm seeing responses come back, Martin, to your questions as well. Just reading those there. Blue Cabin. Oh, another alternative impact framework. Thank you. We're going to get quite a resource pack of all these different ones. So thank you, Jane. We look forward to hearing about that impact framework as well. as the one that Amanda had highlighted. So who is this? Elizabeth. I think Martin's questions. I wonder if there's a need for a register of external evaluators, critical friends who might be able to a paid visit. Elizabeth, do you want to come off mute and describe
Hello,
the vision you have?
Yeah, well,
Thank you.
it's I wouldn't go so far as to say it's a vision, but I just I'm really aware that often the people involved in raising the funds to run a project, to coordinate a project, to deliver a project are often the people evaluating a project as well. And whilst they are really best placed for collecting evidence as a project's ongoing, I just wonder if there are people out there who could be paid somehow to come out and look at projects once they're sort of underway, in order to supplement the
almost like an external assessment.
Yeah, I don't want to use the word external evaluator, but it is that thing of, actually, if I say my project's brilliant, yeah, that's one thing. If somebody else says, actually, this project is really impactful and this is what I've observed, I don't know whether that would be helpful in terms of then going forward and funding more of this kind of thing.
Or some kind of peer register where you've got a group of colleagues.
Certainly for like my contacts in the cultural sector, we might know one or two health professionals who value arts and creativity, but we need those connections to be a little bit easier, and a few more kind of people we can speak to, I suppose.
Fabulous. Martin, do you want to respond to that suggestion there? And it might be one to go on yours and Alice's list.
No, I think it is. I think it's a really great suggestion. I think there's it's about connectivity, isn't it? So there are a number of organisations across the Northeast, Blue Cabin, Mortal Fools, Helix Arts, who I would go to, and I know I can pull upon them and call upon them for kind of critical friendship thing, but it's something that's a bit of an informal peer group. I think we can look to create a little bit more of opportunity to make that more open and collaborative. I think it's worth, because when we actually had some formal research done as STAR, it was brilliant and amazing, but it didn't come very cheaply. It was quite a large cost. And that cost and finance is often a barrier, isn't it? So it's finding ways to share knowledge and information exchange, and I think a peer group to help each other, but removing the barrier of cost would be really great. So I'm talking to Alice tomorrow, so I can certainly put that on our list of things to discuss.
Okay. Fabulous. And music to our ears in the chat here from Sarah Penn. Could she offer any help to promote the work in North Cumbria in any way? I think that's a fabulous offer. And both myself and Chris want to take you up on that straight away. And I think that's a fabulous segue into the next session, when Mel and Martin join us again to share the plans for next year. So thank you ever so much for that helpful questions session, and for those amazing applications and presentations. And now let's look forward to next year's applications, which are about to open in September. Thank you. Over to you.
Thanks, Heather. Yes, believe it or not, after all of that, we're nearly ready to do it all again. So if we can just have the next slide up, please, that gives us a bit more information about what will happen next. So the 2024 to 25 Creative Health Awards will open for applications the week beginning the 9th of September. So we're just busy behind the scenes getting everything ready for that before the school holidays, so that we can go live straight after the summer. So to nominate your creative health project, we just ask you to complete an online form to share with us all the key details and some information about what the impact of your work has been. Just had a lovely detailed conversation about impact and how to measure that. So hopefully some of that will come in handy for those of you wanting to apply next time. If you want to be notified when applications open and receive the link, then make sure that you're signed up to the network newsletter, which comes out every Tuesday, and then also our Creative Classrooms newsletter at Tyne and Wear Archives and Museums, which comes out once a half term. So the first one of the year will go out that week, and the link to sign up is just being put in the chat. Thank you, Amelia, for that. And then that link will also be published on the Healthier Together webpage, and it will go on our TWAM Schools webpage as well, so you'll be able to access it there. And it will also be shared via our new Creative Health Champions, which is the perfect time to pass over to Martin, who's going to talk more about what that role will involve.
Thank you, Mel. Can we go to the next slide, please, Carol? So there was a slide here which was actually about just reflecting upon what creative health is, and I don't think that feels so great a need, because everybody who's been part of the conversation so far has really kind of been able to articulate and explicit that. I suppose what is recognizable is that although we had a rich set of applications for these year's awards, we would like quite a lot more, and I personally believe and have experienced there's a lot more creative health activity happening in the Northeast and Cumbria with children and people. So this is about profile, it's about making people aware that this work is out there. It was great to hear today that we have partnership and pride and enjoyment and progress and collaboration in Young People Centre. It's all happening across the piece. It's just about getting that message wider. So this is a pilot, and this is something we're going to trial to do this year to try and break away from our conventional ways of flagging up the awards, which we will repeat and do all our marketing comms. But we also want to try and see if we can cascade through people and networks and the 8 organisations or partnerships that came together to submit to the Creative Health Awards. We're kind of directly talking to you. So we are looking for the partners who submitted applications to try and help us be a creative health champion for a short period. From September to October, we're looking for you to step forwards with us and see if you can help us spread the message. There's a small grant available to cover some of your time for that. And then what it will involve meeting with myself and other members of the network in September, looking at a very short presentation we pull together with yourselves as well, and taking that out into your networks and forums you can help reach. And then coming back in October, and let's try and understand whether that was a way of raising this profile and generating more applications and helping us to do that. But it's pulling upon your energy and your commitment and your fantastic ideas and using that to reach out into the communities and networks you're part of. The role, in terms of bringing benefit, it's about really about cascading and word of mouth. It's about the experience, and all of the organizations who submit here you're all recognized, you're all well regarded, and it's about pulling upon that, and then people going, oh, okay, great, if Blue Cabin or if Bigfoot, they're involved in this, we should be involved in that, right? This is something we should be part of. And so it's helping us kind of spread that message as well. The commitment was as described. There's a short Teams conversation at the start of September, and then a short Teams conversation at the end of October. And in between that, we ask you to identify a few networks or forums where you can go out there and try and spread the word. It's a 10-minute presentation. That can be a cultural partner doing it in cultural settings. It could also be a school partner doing it in school settings or educational forums. And both partners can both come in to be a creative health champion together. So it's not just one or the other. You can actually come into this together and then kind of address both cultural and education settings. The commitment from us is that I will work closely with you to support and be there around you all the time. Obviously, that might mean there's other conversations we can have while we're having these conversations about creative health champions, and we can look at some of the other areas and things you're thinking about. And there will be a small grant payment as well to support that. Can you go to the next slide, please, Carol? So that's just me just throwing lots of words at you without the actual words on the slide. So the best thing to do is to register your interest either in the chat now or by the email address, which is in the slide presentation, which will be shared with you. And then we'll be back in touch with this written out in a much clearer style for you. And then by the 18th of July, if you can let us know whether you are in and want to jump on board and help us test a bit of a creative health champions route, then we will set up the dates in September for our first briefing session. And hopefully between then and end October half term, you can help us spread the word. And then we'll have a little debrief about what did we learn from that and how did it go. One thing to also clarify is by becoming a creative health champion, that does not exclude you from reapplying to next year's Creative Health Awards. You can come back in. You're also just helping us spread the word to more. The target really, I guess, is to try and see if we can get more partnerships applying for next year's awards. And then we get this kind of momentum, and creative health becomes much better profiled, much better understood, and hopefully more people get interested to engage in that. I think I've covered everything off quite quickly. I'm not sure who we're going to next. Heather? Amelia?
Over to Amelia.
Hi, yes. So in this section, I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about work happening with the network for wider involvement for colleagues on the call. So if we could have the next slide, please, Carol. This is a little bit about our Healthier Together website and app. And if you haven't come across it before, I'll put the website link in the chat and the app link so you can have a look and see what it's all about. But it's amazing. It's a fabulous website with lots of health information and resources, and it's been designed by by a wonderful team who've worked really, really hard on it. Please do have a look. And an example of using it, the chicken pox has spread in our area. Lots of friends and families, children were affected by it, and it was so easy just to ping the website link to everyone to have a look and see the health information around chicken pox. And the schools all sent it out in the newsletters as well, so it's really, really helpful. So highly recommend having a look there. So if you move on to the next slide, please, Carol. So this is the QR code, so you can get it on Google Play and also on the App Store as well for Apple phones. That Laura's contact details are at the bottom. So if you want more information, please do get in touch with Laura, who's leading on this project. Okay, next slide, please, Carol. So communicating and engaging with the network. Today's Tuesday, so our network members will be receiving the Child Health Tuesday bulletin. It usually arrives later on in the day. And we've got almost 2,000 network members. So if you're not a network member, I'll put the link further up, and we'd love you to join us. And you get a weekly email with lots of different opportunities. We also have newsletters, which our comms lead Jen leads on, who spoke to you earlier in the session, and there's loads of examples of work happening, and if people want to contribute any of their work, you're very welcome to send Jen any information. We also have a Twitter account, which is a bit quiet at the moment, but after the 4th of July there will be a lot more information coming out around areas of work. We have our systems engagement group who meet bi-weekly, and they help support reach across the system. So if anyone wants further information, again, please do get in touch with our main inbox and we can share the invite for you. And we've got our huddle programme. So this event is part of it. Next week we have an event around father inclusive practice. And that's been led by Sarah Robson from Bernardo's, an amazing project. So if people would like to register for that, we can share the information as well. And then we've got lots of different resources, mostly available on the Healthier Together website. And it'd be great if you're able to share the Healthier Together information across social media as well. Can I have the next slide, please, Carol? And this is just a table just showing our different opportunities. I guess the big one for me is our influence and engagement with children and young people. So we have a fabulous youth board, who Jen's already mentioned, that created an amazing manifesto. And if you would like any more information about that area of work and to maybe get involved with some of their projects, please do get in touch. So we have 2 different ways of doing that. You can be part of our engagement with children group, and there's a short form to fill in, and it's for people working with children and young people, and our young people are keen to connect with other groups from across the region. There's also a professional network as well. So I think that's me finished, so I'm going to hand over to our chair, Heather Corlett.
Fabulous. Thank you, Amelia. It's gone a bit dark now after all that lovely sunshine yesterday. So I think before I go on to my final comments, I just want to invite both Mel and Chris to see if they have a few final reflections as well, and just use the moment as well. And I know Chris hates it, being put into the limelight, and hates it when we embarrass about how valuable we find his contribution, but we wouldn't be here without your sort of expertise and your drive and energy to make sure that creative health was really put on the map in the northeast and North Cumbria. So thank you for that, Chris. I just wanted to acknowledge that. So Chris, have you got some final words? And then Mel?
Thank you for those lovely compliments, Heather. I'm flattered as usual. Great session. Well done, everybody. Let's grow this and develop this. And I was struck by, and I think it was, I can't remember who it was, but the mantra is collaboration and co-creation. Mm-hmm. The more collaboration we can do, the more co-creation, particularly with children and young people themselves, the better. And long may this flourish.
Fabulous, wise words. Thank you, Chris. And Mel?
Yeah, really just to echo what Chris has said, really, it's been really lovely to hear more about the project. It's felt really supportive and like such a lovely group. I've really enjoyed reading the chat and seeing everybody's reactions to different projects. So that's been great to see. But it feels like we're at the beginning of something. So this feels like everybody that's here today is part of that initial movement to make this stronger and to grow that more. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this collaboration takes us and what happens next.
Fabulous. Thanks ever so much, Mel, and agree. And just to build on that, really, just to acknowledge as chair, amazing all the work that was shared. And also, I wasn't a panel member, but all the applications, all the panel members have noted the high standards. So we really appreciate everybody's interest and applications for this year. And congratulations to all entries. Thank you for your time today and engaging so effectively. And also, when the recording comes out, do share the recording with people that you think will be interested. Thank you to the team for pulling together the all the different slides and the agendas, and a special shout out to Carol, and I'm sure she'll be pleased to relax and have a cup of tea after today with the unintended film session. So thank you for keeping your cool with that, Carol. Where I want to just reiterate the 5th of July and thank you for sharing that. I've said if you can put any Twitter or X handles in the chat, then we'll tag you when we do, because we want to shout about this loud and wide, and it's a real shame. It was either reschedule and then we're a bit too close to the end of term, or keep the date and just be a bit shush until the 5th of July. But we really want to make a noise, and that's important for next year as well. So thank you for that. Thank you for committing for Creative Health Champions, and I'm hoping we're going to have each of those 8 partnerships represented for next year. And thank you to all of you for encouraging. And I know some people were only coming on today to find out about the Creative Health Awards. And so hopefully we didn't scare you, we inspired you. And we look forward to everybody that's been on the session today actually submitting for next year's award. So like Chris and Mel said, we can just continue to build on your success. So thank you very much to everybody, and look forward to seeing you at next year's awards. Bye bye. Thank you.